Hello, I'm Richard Kauntze, Chief Executive of the British Council for Offices, the BCO, and welcome to the second in a series of interviews we are calling The New Normal. Each week we will talk to a prominent member of the BCO about the coronavirus crisis and the impact on the office sector. Last week, in the first of these interviews, I had a chat with Paul Paytnell, President of the BCO, and in the coming weeks, I'll be looking at a different area of expertise within the BCO's broad spectrum of membership. So our second guest for the second interview, is Elaine Rossall. Now, Elaine started her career at what's now Cushman & Wakefield, first as a member of the European Research Group, and then as head of the London Group Research Team. Elaine's now at Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL, where she's head of the Office's Research Team. But more than all of that, since 2018, Elaine has been the chair of the BCO's Research Committee, which takes an overview of the entire BCO research programme. So welcome, Elaine.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Not at all. Delighted to have you with us. And thank you very much for taking part. And my first question to you, Elaine, if I may, is how do you think we will work once we're all out of this lockdown situation?
Good question. And I think probably at this stage, one that's very difficult to answer with a definitive answer. But I think what we can probably say with certainty is that businesses will really not go back to the way that they've worked before the pandemic. I think we'll probably see them using the crisis to reinvent themselves, to be more resilient, adapting their operational models to, I suppose, what we're calling the new normal. I think what we will see is some of those emerging structural changes that we have been seeing already accelerate. So we'll start to see companies include lower employee density, deployment of remote working options, for example. But I think the physical transformation of the environment is really going to be instrumental and critical to us all getting back to work.
And my next question to you, if I may, is to what extent do you think working from home will become the new normal?
I think working from home, as we've demonstrated in the last few weeks, has been an easier switch for many companies and individuals. I know just from looking at some of the people in our offices who would have, have been, I suppose, working from home dinosaurs, and now fully embracing working from home, and surprised at actually how easy it has been. And we know that some particular sectors, specifically some companies such as lawyers, who again would never have dreamt of using working from home, are now really thinking about using that as a part of their longer term strategy. But despite all that, I think the current switch to remote working, I think the physical office will still maintain and will still have a role. I think it's really important as a facilitator of interaction, innovation and collaboration. So I think looking forward, working from home is really only going to be one part of any corporate's future real estate footprint.
Thank you. Unsurprisingly, I find that very reassuring. Of course, I do feel the office has a great future, but beyond any changes in how we work, how do you think the office sector will be affected by what will undoubtedly be a very big economic shock?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we just look generally about if we're making an assumption that we're going to go into a recession, I think, that's not too far of an overestimation. Then there is no doubt that the road ahead is going to be really relatively bumpy for the office market. And the only thing we can really do at this stage is to really look back at what's happened in previous recessions to kind of give an indication of where the office market might go. Just from a purely practical sense, we should see things like vacancy rates will increase, occupier activity will be reduced, and that's likely to have an impact on rents. We're already seeing a number of trends emerging. So, for example, construction activity We're also seeing delays to buildings that are on site, and also in terms of fit out contractions. So I think, we're going to start to see that that's something that we'll see in the foreseeable future, because obviously construction can't guarantee their supply chain, can't guarantee enough workers on site. So the industry is self-regulating from that perspective. So I think there's some of the kind of the short-term, I suppose, practical factors that we might see. But I think also we might start to see things like the relationship between landlord and tenants continuing to shift. I think that's one of the things that we have seen come to the fore from the pandemic. We've been talking for quite some time now about that shift in relationship between landlord and tenants. And I think what's happening now is really kind of putting the emphasis and focus on that relationship, how landlords are working with their tenants to help them through this crisis. I think that will start to lead to kind of a longer term shift in that relationship, full stop.
Thank you. One consequence of this new parallel universe that we all inhabit at the moment is that we're traveling far less, or for most of us, not at all, really. Mm. So in terms of when we do go back to some kind of new normal, how do you think travel will be impacted by all of this? And looking specifically at London, Europe's only megacity, do you think there is any danger that London might lose its crown as the world's premier city, not least because of its connectivity? Or is it uniquely well placed to bounce back?
I think it's actually fairly uniquely well placed. I think there are a lot of, if you look at the underlying fundamentals of why London is a global city, those have not changed and will not change because of the pandemic. I think individuals' corporate behaviour may change. And as you say, things like commuting will be one of the areas where people will start to be a little bit more wary in the short term. But you can see companies adapting to that, particularly as we start to re-enter the workforce. So you might start seeing companies do shifts in terms of the workforce, in terms of introducing them back into the office. You might start to see greater flexibility around when people go into the office. So perhaps start to see a movement away from everyone working 9 to 5 to give that flexibility so that the working day spreads over a greater number of hours, to prevent that kind of crowds on the underground and crowds on the tube. So I think it'll be an individual choice as well. But I say, just generally looking at London as a global city, the fundamentals are too strong, I think, for it to lose its crown over the longer term.
Thank you. And another sort of related issue to that is infrastructure. And clearly, after what will undoubtedly be a very deep recession, hopefully a very short one, but it will be deep, is the need to generate employment and economic activity quickly. There's obviously been a massively protracted debate about the third runway at Heathrow. HS2 just got the green light before the crisis struck. But do you think major infrastructure projects will be more or less attractive post coronavirus crisis?
Well, I think it's obviously a difficult question to answer. I mean, the reason for building those big infrastructures are to improve connectivity both within the UK and globally, and also that any development and any large infrastructure projects bring with them employment opportunities. So, but putting that to one side, I think one of the important things is around infrastructure is enabling people to move around the country. So one of the things I think that COVID-19 has probably done is that we could be increasingly wary about going on public transport. You might see a shift back to car use. And I think over the longer term, we need to think about actually getting people back onto public transport. It's much more sustainable and for the economy. So I think infrastructure that enables people to move within the country, enables them to get into work, enables to go shopping, take part in leisure, I think is really important. I think that's one area that we should kind of perhaps emphasise and be investing in.
Thanks, Elaine. Sadly, we are pretty much out of time. These interviews are designed to be a 10-minute snapshot, and our 10 minutes is up. So, but I'm very grateful to you for your time and your thoughts, and I hope all of those who watch this have enjoyed it as much as I have. And my thanks again to Elaine Rossall from JLL, and from Elaine and from me. Thank you and goodbye.